Welcome to episode number 10 of the Won the Lot podcast on Talking Devils Extra Time. Talking Devils is your number one leading independent Manchester United podcast. My name is Harry from Fan Owned United, your regular host, and this week I'm with Stephen, as per usual. Unfortunately, Pete couldn't join us, so it's just us two today. And Stephen is a lifelong United fan and had his season ticket in the stand for the last 25 years. We've had a bit of a break over the last couple of weeks. A summer break for us, I guess. One of the guys hasn't been around and other things have been going on. And to be honest, news-wise, bits and pieces has been coming through, but not a whole lot to cover in one go. But quite a bit today to cover off. Great news potentially about Marcus Rashford signing a new contract. So Onana coming in, David De Gea leaving, Mason Mount, obviously one of the big and the first major signings of the season. Along with Maguire's captaincy, which he has relinquished. So all of that's going to be covered off today. If you are joining us live, please do drop a comment or a question. They're all welcome. So let's get straight into it. So big news coming out today. There was talk over the last few weeks about this, but it seems to be slightly more concrete now that Rashford will be signing a new contract. How important do you think that is, Steve, for the team and the squad going forward?
Yeah, very much so. It's good to be back on the podcast, and I think it's kind of the stars have aligned really with Rashford's contract being announced today. Obviously, being the episode 10 of our podcast. So
waiting for us.
That's it. It's worked out really well. Rashford, massive player for us last season. Massive improvement. I think a few of us actually mentioned that he was our biggest surprise of the season, from where our expectations were of him at the start of last season to where he came out and how he performed relatively consistently throughout the season. He started quite slowly, but had a really big middle third of the season, and then kind of dropped off when he was knackered towards the end. But that's the case with all the players because we very rarely rotated. But yeah, we know how important he is, and that's probably reflected in the size of the contract that he's going to get. He's a very valuable player for us. He's becoming a leader on the pitch, leading by example. Sorry. And hopefully he carries on the form from last season going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of talk about what his new contract is going to be in regards to salary per week. I've heard kind of mixed things on the socials from the fan base. Some obviously just eager to get him signed. There's other people using words such as holding the club at ransom and things like that. But the way I look at it is he is definitely in the top 5 to 10 strikers or left wingers, whatever you want to call it, in the world at the moment. And he's obviously reaching the prime of his career. So you sometimes, I guess, as a footballer, have to look at this selfishly. I guess for us, it's a bit different in comparison to earnings. These guys get paid loads of money anyway. But I guess from his perspective, if he is that good and United want to keep him, they need to be paying a certain amount of money, which, so I completely understand. The guy's at the peak of his career, and the alternative is, to let him go. To either sell him or let him go for free, which would be disastrous. And then we need to get in a new player, pay £100 million because that realistically that's his value at the moment in the market, from 80 to 100 million. And obviously, it's great to keep players from the academy, local lads in the team. And he has done fantastically well, especially last season. He had a difficult time, as we all know, a couple of seasons before that. But he really has turned things around, and he literally carried us in so many games. And overall, I mean, his stats have been good. I was having a quick look earlier. He's played 359 games or senior caps. He scored 123 times. So that's over, 1 in 3, which, it's pretty good standing for a player which, hasn't always been an out-and-out striker for us. So me personally, I mean, I'm chuffed that he signed. I think it's really important. It's a really important message as well for anyone that's joining the club, or any players that we're pursuing, that we're able to keep our big players going forward. So I think that's really, really important. Obviously, now all we need to do is pair that up with a striker in terms of a new signing in the summer. And if he carries on his form, we can be, I think, a bit of a force going forward now, given the players that we've signed as well. And it's good to know as well. I was reading a few more articles, and they were saying that there were a few options on the table for him. I mean, potentially, I'm guessing PSG, considering Mbappe might be on the move. And he decided to turn those down and to go with what we are offering. So all good, all positive, and looking forward to seeing him again next season.
Yeah.
Moving on from Rashford, the other big point from this week is it seems that United are very close to signing Victor Onana, given obviously David De Gea is no longer with us. It was actually reported just over an hour ago with TalkSport that a fee had been agreed for 47 million. Now, obviously, TalkSport, I mean, they're a pretty solid outlet, but I guess until Fabrizio gives the all clear, everyone is still on tenterhooks. But if it is 47 million pounds, do you think that's good value for money?
Yeah, I do. I think, well, considering he was free last season, no, not at all. Inter Milan got him for free last season, and if you're looking for players who might fit the system of an incoming manager, someone who he's been playing with for the last 3 or 4 years, that is, that's the perfect choice, especially if he's free. So some of these people at United clearly don't have massive amounts of foresight and planning and kind of cuteness in the market to think of these deals. Inter Milan have played an absolute blinder. They've picked up a keeper for free, a top keeper for free. They got to the Champions League final. He played a great game against City, and now they're going to sell him for pretty much 50 million, either euros or pounds. I'm not too sure. So yeah, they've played an absolute blinder. We could have had him for free, potentially in rotation with De Gea this season. I imagine that he would quickly have usurped De Gea this season, similar to how Alessandro Martinez has to Harry Maguire. So yeah, we picked him up late, but he is the right player and the right player that Ten Hag wanted. So he does fit the bill of a ball-playing keeper. I can't say that I've seen him too many times, but from what I've heard and from the bits I've seen, he is very much a keeper that would be quite transformative to the way we play. So the fee, we can talk about that, but the way that it'll transform United, and we'll be able to play a little bit higher and a higher possession game rather than building from the back a little bit more. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good signing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly speaking, myself, just like you, I don't really cover or watch Serie A week on week. But there are a lot of positives about him. Obviously, we have to bear in mind that Ten Hag's worked quite closely with him as well at Ajax. And I mean, so far, so good in regards to recruitment on the players he's brought in and the players he's worked with in the past, obviously with Licha. I guess, yeah, we have to see. I mean, I've also seen all these these few clips which are going around today, but I guess everyone has a bit of a united agenda, right? When we get some players in, there's a few clips of him giving the ball away
Of
pretty
course there is.
easily and stuff.
Of course there is. Yeah. I mean, Edison's done it loads of times. He gave the ball to McTominay. One of the, quite recently, when we beat City at Old Trafford, and Alisson's done it a few times. All the ball playing keepers are always going to take those risks. If a keeper makes a mistake, it's more than 9 out of 10 times a goal. So they're always going to be
absolutely. And you'd hope, obviously, he's played in a couple of countries now, and you'd hope that he's obviously used that to his advantage. More experienced, played in some very good teams. So we'll see how things pan out. But I guess the proof will be, in the pudding, as they say, when he starts for us. So let's see. But I think it really was a must. I personally think that, well, there was obviously quite a few mistakes from De Gea in the second part of the season, especially. But I think really the FA Cup final was the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
I mean, it was clear to see. I was behind the goal. I was in the stands every single time. You didn't even need to see it on the TV. Every single time we had the ball going from the back, he wasn't confident in playing it out to the back, which, I mean, yeah, it would help if his distribution was better, which it wasn't. But at the same time, playing against City, we don't always have the best defenders who can hold up the ball from the back. But the combination of everything just meant that he was punting the ball forward. John Stones was picking it up really easily. And
I think his pass percentage was 50% in that final. And for a keeper who just literally lays the ball off, and they can play as many short passes as they want, but as soon as it goes long, you're losing the ball every time. And that brings his pass completion down to 50%, which it's tragic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with someone else coming in who's more confident with their distribution, it makes a difference to the whole defense as well, because they become a lot more confident. From what I hear, he's quite a commanding keeper as well. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, we should give De Gea the respect he's due. He was at the club for a very long time. And there were seasons, obviously, where he won the Sir Matt Busby Award. He was the best player in the team for a few seasons. And even last year before, there were certain games where he had amazing saves. That was the frustrating part. He did the difficult part really well, but the easier stuff, which you think you'd be able to work on, he couldn't do. And I guess on top of that, I guess you mentioned that we could have got Onana for free last year. Maybe Ten Hag didn't really have enough time to bring in all the players he wanted. And I guess the more kind of areas which needed urgent attention, like centre back and right wing, were addressed. And now he's kind of reshuffling things, I guess, from the wage perspective as well, right? Because we might have hit our wage cap last year as well as to what the club were comfortable to pay each week on players. And now, obviously, with De Gea moving on, it's 375,000 a week, which has been freed up from the salary budget. And I'm sure Onana is not going to be on those kind of wages. So it's, the way Ten Hag seems to be managing all of these situations, the club just seems to be really, really good. And we'll touch on that a little in a bit as well. So yeah, obviously Onana coming in, De Gea going out. I think we all agree that was the right decision. We've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, I think it was the right decision, but I don't think it was handled well at all.
Yeah.
Everyone knew from maybe the start of the season, or especially when he started making mistakes in the second game of the season against Brentford, that his time was probably up. And I think a lot of people knew that he wasn't the right style of keeper for the manager that we have in now. And there's a lot of opinion. And with him being in the last year of his contract, there should have been a decision made in the 2-3 months leading up to the end of the season where he should have been told. There should have been an announcement. There should have been some sort of ceremony, maybe not ceremony, but like he is due a testimonial. Will he do that now after being mugged off by the club? I'm not sure. But at least a final game of the season where he gets to go around and take in the applause after getting so much, getting so much stick from the last couple of years. He deserves. I think he's United's 5th all-time appearance maker, most ever clean sheets. So he's got some records, and he's got some really, really high accolades within the club. And for us to offer him a deal and then to him sign it, renegotiate, and then him to walk away, who knows what's actually happened? But that's a lot of the words going around, and any sort of uncertainty about something like that, especially with someone who potentially will be in a couple of years looked back at and described as a club legend. It's not great. And I know that a lot of people say that not everyone should be leaving on good terms, and it's very rare for people to be leaving with fanfare and everything like that. But for a player and someone who's been in the first team for 12 years, doing records and appearances, clean sheets, golden gloves, player of the years, I think he deserves a bit more than that. And I just think it's been handled a little bit awkwardly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not the first time the club has handled situations like that badly with players leaving. And you're right in that, you always know there's a certain type of player who actually wants to be at the club and really wants to play for United. I mean, there is an argument to say that, obviously he's going to want to be there if he's being paid $375 a week. But no, he genuinely seemed as if he was a proper Red, and he wanted to be there. And also, you think about the past with what happened with Madrid and all of the fax machine, incident that went on. I mean, even after that, he could have come out and, kind of threw his toys, out the pram, but he didn't. He just got on with it. And he's been a loyal servant. So you're right in that he should have had a better send-off. I guess the only saving grace is on the final game at home, he got the Golden Glove, and the whole team was around him. It got presented to him, and he got a bit of an applause, which I didn't think he thought that was the last time he'd be at Old Trafford, though, as a United player.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I would have stayed and clapped him until he left the pitch. If that's the case, if it's a send-off, he brings in all of the applause. And I'm tweeting every couple of weeks this season that he should be leaving. And it's the best thing for the club. It's potentially the best thing for him and his own mental state. I'm sure he sees the amount of stick he gets online about his performances and that he's not good enough anymore. And he can go to somewhere that he's loved.
Yeah.
We don't know where he's going to go yet. He could well go to Saudi Arabia and triple his already 375.
Yeah.
That's the best. That is honestly the best thing for him. The amount of big names that are going there now, he'll be loved over there. He'll be getting a hell of a lot of money, and there'll be nowhere near as much focus on how he plays and how he ends his career. To end it with him just having to put out a tweet on some random Tuesday at lunchtime, I think it was, or 2:30 on a Tuesday. It's just shoddy.
And you can tell that even he was just fed up with the situation, because even before that, I don't know if you saw, he put out a couple of tweets of like just emojis, right? When he, like a yawning emoji or something like that. And like you said, supposedly the story is he was offered a contract, he signed it, went back, and Ten Hag saw how much United was still offering him and said it was too much. So really, that is United's fault. That contract shouldn't have got to De Gea if
the manager
Ten
didn't
Hag
want
didn't
it.
sign it off.
But again, it's ruthlessness from the manager. And one good thing about having someone who's just come in and spent a season is that sentiment isn't playing a part. If he's had someone for 9 years and he loves him around the dressing room, he loves him in the training ground, he's grown, into the role with someone so reliable, behind him, then it might have been a bit trickier to let him go. But to have one season at United and him being responsible for a lot of goals and mistakes, I think it's quite easy for him to let go. And the ruthless nature, that's what you need in football at top level. Sentiment is not a thing at top teams, so it shouldn't be with United.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the first time we've had this kind of decision making from a manager since Fergie.
Yeah,
I mean, which is a surprise if you think about the names that we've had: Van Gaal, Mourinho, okay, Solskjaer less so, but I mean, especially Mourinho, you would expect him to have a very rigid system in place when it comes to transfers and having a structure in the club, etc. But it seemed to even be too much for him. So finally, we've got what we need in terms of all of that. So yeah, obviously De Gea has moved on. Like you said, Saudi Arabia supposedly is one of the outlets, and I mean, everyone's relishing an opportunity there. Like it's not even players which are past their best. There's players in their prime which are moving over, which I mean is fair enough. Like I said about Rashford before, at the end of the day, these guys, it's their profession, and if they can earn more elsewhere, they'll take up these offers. I mean, I don't know if you saw, there was a video of Igalo on a private jet.
Oh no,
if you saw that.
No, I've not seen that one.
It wasn't even a small private jet. It looked like.
But he even went to China as well, didn't he? So he got a lot of money over there. So if you can get the payday, why not? Especially if you're not going to be. I get the frustration and the anger if you're at a team who's looking at potentially winning trophies, but if you've either won trophies and are kind of going down, or if you're at a team, let's say Ruben Neves at Wolves, he could have gone to potentially a top half side or like an Aston Villa or something like that. I don't think he would have got into a top 4 team or a Champions League team and been a consistent starter with them. So, he's what, 28 or something like that, or 26, and, getting 40 million a year is that's an obvious option, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we missed out on a trick on him a couple of seasons ago. I thought he would have been a great kind of squad player to have.
Yeah, he could have been.
But yeah, like you say, fair dues to the guys that are going out there, and maybe De Gea will be joining them. So all the best, David, and we wish you well for the future. Moving to the next one, Man United's big first signing of the summer window, done quite early, which is strange than the norm. Mason Mount has come in from Chelsea, supposedly £55 million with 5 million in add-ons. Did you think he was going to be one of the players coming in so early in the summer? Did you think that he was that high on Ten Hag's priority list?
I'm not too sure. I wouldn't have put it in our priorities. I would have probably put a central midfielder second or third out of the priority list. If you're going to put a striker, a central midfielder, or a keeper, I would have had the striker first priority. And then between the central midfielder and the keeper, it depends on De Gea. But yeah, if the option to pick him up at that price and at that time was there, then I'm happy with that. So he's clearly the guy that Ten Hag has earmarked to upgrade our midfield. The interviews that he's done and the quotes that he's been quoted, has praised a lot of his energy, his dynamism, his technical consistency and reliability. So, who are we to argue with the guy who's, he's hit every single transfer he's brought in. So I think someone like Mason Mount is an upgrade on Eriksen, where Eriksen did have the creativity, the reliability of consistent performance, but then he didn't have the energy at all, and especially in the last 5 or 6 games of the season after his injury, he just looked well off the pace. So hopefully he gets a good pre-season and has had a good rest and can rotate a lot more this season. But I'm really happy with Mount, and I'm actually really happy that he's got the number 7. This might be a bit of a not the most popular idea, but I just don't think we need another player getting the number 7 who's going to make headlines every week, be it good or bad. I think if we can get Mason Mount, who is going to fly under the radar maybe a little bit, similar to like a Michael Carrick, he'll do a lot, but not many people talk about him. If he's got the number 7 shirt, it just brings a lot more media attention away.
Yeah.
And I just don't say if we gave it Garnacho and he just wasn't performing, then it'd all be he's not performing to the shirt, it's the pressure and everything like that. Whereas Mason Mount is going to give you a 7, like minimum probably a 7 out of 10 every game, and then that whole narrative can just go. And I'm happy with that as much as I can be, really.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to look at it, and valid points to be fair. I mean, I agree on the first few things you said. I didn't expect Ten Hag to go after him so quickly, considering we do have cover in that area. But he does definitely add something a bit different in his style of play, I think. Also, 24 years old, so he's really going to be kind of hitting his peak, and he can give us, the next kind of 7-8 years of being at his best. Already, I mean, in the Premier League alone, he's played 129 games, which is a lot for, someone that age. 27 goals, 24 assists, so 51 goals and assists in the Premier League as well. He seems to be, really experienced for his age. Did I think he would get the number 7? I personally I didn't think he was going to get it. Do I think he should have? I'm slightly more on the fence, just because, of the fairy tale the number 7 has associated with that.
Shirt number purists. Yeah. I am quite similar. I'd love a right winger to be number 7 or a left winger to be number 7. I would. But yeah, for the reasons I've given, I think where the club is now, we don't need more attention.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I definitely wouldn't have given it to Garnacho. I think it's too soon for that. Yeah. If anything, I would have just left it if we didn't bring in another big signing, either on the right, winger, striker, whatever it may be. Maybe just saved it for next summer.
Because people were saying Sancho as well, and like he's got enough pressure on his shoulders already.
Yeah,
he doesn't need any more.
That's the last thing he needs. He's good with his 25. Like he doesn't need any more attention on him at all. So let's see how he does. I mean, you're right. He's very consistent. He'll definitely have a positive impact, I think. I doubt he'll have issues adapting too much, like Sancho did, and I don't think he'll let the pressure kind of get to him. He just seems to have, like I said, that slightly more experienced head to him. So,
he's not coming in to be the main man either, is he? Like he's got Bruno next to him, who is our side's principal creator. He's got Rashford. He's got hopefully a striker to come in as well, and Anthony, who's cost a hell of a lot more than him as well. So he's just good. He's coming in to provide energy and keep it ticking over. He's not here to be the superstar, and that's a great signing.
Yeah, and he adds, like I said, adds to the squad in that takes free kicks, takes corners. Another little outlet. Don't forget he is experienced as well. He's won the Champions League with Chelsea, and I think we can definitely see that shift over the last couple of years and getting players in which have won major trophies. With your Casemiros, Varans, etc. Leach as well. Obviously won the league in Holland. And our team, obviously not the biggest trophy, but they've won something now in the Carabao Cup. So that's I think something that Ten Hag has definitely kept an eye on as well, is to bring that experience into the team, and hopefully it pays off. But yeah, I think there'll be good things from Mount going into next season. Let's hope he has a good preseason. Like I said, it was good we signed him when we have, because at least he can have that full preseason with us, do the tour. Ten Hag can really kind of set the expectations as to what he wants from him, and we'll be good to go. So yeah, just moving on to one of the final points. Obviously, Harry Maguire has given up his captaincy. He released a statement on his socials over the weekend, saying that he's had discussions with Ten Hag and has agreed to give up the captaincy, which makes sense, obviously, based on the amount of games he got last season. I think that's going to carry on, obviously, going into next season, as long as Martinez and Varane stay fit. But even if one of those get injured, we saw ourselves last year, Lindelof kind of took priority over Maguire, and even Luke Shaw at times. So I think it's clear that Maguire's obviously not in Ten Hag's plans. And even though he was club captain, I mean, there were points last season where it seems like he may be losing parts of the dressing room. I think one of the points I remembered was, I think it was the semi-final against Brighton, like before we took the penalties. Like Bruno had everyone around in a huddle and was, getting people pumped, giving orders, getting the list together, whereas Maguire was just, on the periphery. I know he didn't play that game, but things like that, if you have a leader in the dressing room, that's where you jump in and you get the boys behind you, which purely because I think the lack of games, and we all know his performances haven't been good for a few seasons now. He's maybe lost a bit of that respect. So yeah, obviously the right move.
Yeah, I agree. I think when he's played as well, even starting as captain, he's not actually been a great leader. You think of a leader and you're thinking of leading by example. He's not taking a game and battering strikers. He's not winning a million balls in the air. He's not pushing the line up. He's not reorganizing. He's not restructuring. And I think a lot of the players you actually mentioned earlier, you've obviously got Bruno, Casemiro, Varane, Shaw, Lisandro Martinez, even Rashford now. They're all leaders in this squad. And Harry Maguire, you'd think if we know that Harry Maguire wasn't even captain, where would you put him on that list? And it'd be 10th or 11th or something like that. So yeah, it was absolutely the right thing to do. Is that the indication that he's happy for him to leave? I'm not too sure. I personally think it's the right thing to do for him to leave, for the club and for himself. I think if he can join a club who play in a back five in their formation, then that'll be a lot more suited to how he plays. It's just not worked out. He's had 2 decent years and then 2 bad years at United, and I think it's about time to call it quits. And in terms of if we can get a decent amount of money for him, I'm not really too sure. And I've seen a lot about his wages and that we'd have to give him a bit of a payoff, or to, if say West Ham, for example, come in for him and offer him 100 grand a week, he's on 200 at United. So we're going to have to pay him 100 grand a week for the rest of his contract at what would have been at United.
I've never come across that before. I've never heard of it, of a player leaving the club and his previous club having to pay the difference if he takes a pay cut. Surely pay cuts happen all the time. Like,
Well,
especially players that get older.
I mean, he's still got at least a year or 2 years on his contract or something like that. If he's happy with the team he's going to, if he's happy with everything about it, but he's being paid half of what he's going if he's going to be paid at United, I don't know. Will he just sit on the bench for 2 years and collect 200 grand a week rather than play every week for 100? Who knows? I mean, that's what these guys going over to Saudi have got. They've got, it's a lot of it's a lot of money to be giving up, especially even if you've got all the money in the world. It's a lot of money to be giving up. So I think
I don't know also how true this is, but I saw something that because we're back in the Champions League next season, his wage is actually going to increase.
Yeah, 25% wage rise, I believe. I've seen that somewhere as well. And again, it just makes it harder to get off the books. It's actually quite similar, I think, with Sancho going forward. If he has another bad season this year, he'll still have another 2 years on his contract. He's on 250 grand a week or something like that. If we want to get rid of him, no one's going to pay 250 grand a week for him to join them. So we're going to have to subsidise that as well. So it's, again, as I touched on at the start of the pod, it's quite poor planning and stuff like that going forward. If you're giving contracts out, they should be incentivized by performance and goals and appearances and everything like that, not just a flat wage.
Yeah.
And especially if you're signing someone who, like Maguire, he's looked okay, but he's been relegated 3 times. He's not an absolute superstar. There should be some sort of planning in place just in case it doesn't work. And it clearly hasn't worked. And we're going to lose a lot of money on either selling him at least half of his price and to subsidise wages.
Yeah. And again, don't know how true it is, but Sky Sports were reporting in their rumour section that supposedly Newcastle quite interested in him, West Ham, Tottenham, and supposedly even Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea.
I don't know. I'm taking that with a bit of like a pinch of salt for Premier League teams coming in.
I think a Tottenham move would be great for him because it's a big club with a big ground. They've got a lot of money. They play back 5. I'm not sure what the new boss is going to do, but in the last 4 or 5 years, they've played a back 5. He'll fit right in. Maybe not alongside Eric Dyer because they both can't run 20 miles an hour combined. They play in the system that Harry Maguire plays well for England in. Yeah. So that'd make sense for a lot of reasons. And I don't know, bringing someone in to replace Maguire, I'm not even too sure that we'd really need to. If we get quite lucky with Varane next season, if we got Lindelof to cover and then Shaw potentially to go inside, and then have him last year at left back. Even Alvaro Fernandez. I watched bits of the game the other day against Leeds in the pre-season game, and I thought he looked really good. Quite powerful going forward. His passing was good. He came into the middle to support the central midfielders, and he's only 19 years old, so I think he could potentially have a shot in squad rotation at left back if we get an injury and Luke Shaw has to go into centre back. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it, especially if we have to sell Maguire to fund a striker, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and the fees that have been talked about. Supposedly United want 50 million, but we'll settle for 35.
I'd take it. Someone offered 30 tomorrow, I'd take it. 30 tomorrow, easy. Just to, again, it's one of those, I'm talking about headlines. I don't want a headline next season. I don't want one headline written about United next season. I know that's not going to happen. We're going to be in the press every week. But if Maguire goes, then there's going to be no more headlines written about him and the fee that we paid and everything like that. It's just like kind of media attention that is just unneeded. If we get a guy who comes in who is consistent and reliable, and every bit of praise that Luke Shaw got at centre back last year, and Lisandro Martinez and Varane and Lindelof, that they're not going to let us down often, but they're just not. So yeah, as little media attention as possible, please.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if he does move on, I really think we're missing a trick with Kim from Napoli.
Yeah.
£40 million or euros, whatever it is, on his release clause. Supposedly he was keen on it until Bayern moved in, and supposedly it was done a couple of weeks ago, but there hasn't been any kind of official talk about it. But I personally think just having another centre-back who obviously isn't first team, but good enough to rotate in the squad would be useful to have, just in case if we pick up 2 injuries, it may be just pushing it a little bit too much, and we may be a bit thin. But in regards to Maguire, definitely time for him to move on, and I think that is pretty clear with the captaincy going. So who do you think will be the next captain?
I think it'll be Bruno. He played 70 games last season, or 72 games or something like that, which is just bonkers. He didn't miss a game. He got injured about 2 or 3 days before his next game in a protective boot, and he took injections and played through that pain just so he could play for us. And that's a captain. I know he moans a lot, and I know he whinges and cries when we're not winning, but he cares, and that's what a captain should do. Casemiro leads by example. He's a great leader on the pitch. He gets booked a few times too many, or sent off a few times too many, but he's a contender. Luke Shaw's a contender with how consistent he's been for the last few years. Lisandro Martinez, contender, very vocal on the pitch, can see the whole game, plays out from the back, almost like a quarterback. So he might be able to give a really good overview of the pitch and structure in the team. Speaks really good English. Rashford, again, from left wing, he leads by example. He drags the team forward. He gets important goals. We've got a good leadership team in the squad now. And a few years ago, when Maguire was given the captaincy by Solskjaer, you look around and you think he's probably the best option. But right now, we've got tons of him. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Lisandro Martinez. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Rashford. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Casemiro. And I do think it'll be Bruno because of how much he plays and how consistent and reliable he is. And he was vice captain last season. So it'd shock me if it wasn't. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if it was given to any of those lads that I've just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there's definitely leadership across the team, which it was like when we were winning Premier League titles and were super successful. Like we had Rio, Vida, Evra, Rooney. The kind of list would Van der Sar. List would go on and on. We didn't for a couple of seasons. We almost felt like we didn't have a permanent captain.
We really didn't.
Everyone just led the team, in their own kind of way. So I think we're similarly getting to that kind of level, but agreed, with the amount of games he plays and the fact that he was vice captain last season, I think he'll definitely give it to Bruno. Like you said about his characteristics, I think they're perfect for a captain because you need someone like that to be in the ref's face, always kind of moaning about decisions. And we all know everyone else hates him, all the other teams and the fans or whatever, they hate him because he's just that one type of player who's annoying, and that's the reason why they hate him. Yeah. So those are the characteristics I think that you exactly need as a captain, and I think he'll do very well. Which I guess, I think Ten Hag's seen that from a mile off. And even last season, that's why he gave him the armband so many times. And I guess just to round up on the last point I wanted to mention, we mentioned it a couple of times, but to outline specifically was how this team is changing under Ten Hag and how he's making all these really important decisions. I mean, last year he was quoted, several times on certain players like Ronaldo. He said, how important his experience was. He would, talk about how great De Gea was and how important he is for his plans. How great of a captain Maguire is. And you've seen come the end of the season the decisions he's made. And like you said, there's no emotion attached. Where I think now we finally got a manager who is just doing everything for the team. Doesn't care about what's going on with the board. He's not getting involved with the politics. Doesn't care about who might be in favor in the dressing room, who he should please or not. These are a set of rules. These are the decisions he needs to make for the better of the team. If you think about it, these are huge, huge decisions. Letting Ronaldo go halfway through the season, vetoing that contract from De Gea and saying no, we can't give this to him. That's a big call. And now with Maguire, ultimately I think he's had a frank conversation with him, said that he's not in his plans going forward, and the best thing for him to do would be, not to be captain going forward. Massive decisions, and I think that's just going to keep us in good stead going forward.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot that he's done right and not a lot that he's done wrong. He's made decisions which are best for the club, not for himself. And if he's done all this in terms of the transformation in 1 year, or one, let's say 2.5 transfer windows, you can barely even count last transfer window as one, just getting Wout Weghorst on a loan. But the decisions he's making in year one should really be standing him in good stead for the next few years. And if he gets time, which I think he will, if he keeps the team performing and keeps improving players little by little, like look at Wan-Bissaka last year. It looks like he was out the door, and now he's probably in most of 60-70% of people's first team for starting next season. If you can keep doing that, if you can turn Malacia into someone who can be really, really pushing Luke Shaw, if you can turn Mason Mount into someone who's on par with Bruno, if you can turn Anthony into the player that he looked like he was at Ajax. I know you're playing against a lot worse defenders in Holland, but if you can make Anthony make Premier League defenders look that bad, then and then potentially we need to get a striker and turn that striker. If it's going to be this Højlund, if he turns him into a 15-20 goal a season striker, then brilliant. And yeah, I mean, he needs time. Look at Arteta. 1-0 for the first. Well, he's still 1-0, but I think he won an FA Cup and he's been there for 4 or 5 years now. But that team is starting to really look like a proper team, and that's with consistency and time and backing from the board, obviously. But they spent 200 million on 3 players, and that's with 17 days of the transfer window gone out of 2 months. You've got a month and a half left. They might well go and spend more. So. Yeah. A manager who's consistently given time and backing and freedom to do what they want, rather than you got to do what the board wants. Ten Hag has clearly been trusted to do what he's done so far, and it's working. So we need that to continue big time.
Yeah, massively, which hopefully it will do, and it will translate into results on the pitch. So yeah, obviously he's getting on with his pre-season. There's 1 game last week and a few more coming up. I think the majority of the squad is going to be back with them shortly. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I personally think pre-season is always a bit difficult to read as to how good the team's actual season is going to start. So let's see. But yeah, we'll be back next week, hopefully with Onana officially signing. and a couple of more on the list, which have been spoke about for the last few weeks. Højlund and a few others. So let's see how United get on there. Thanks again for joining us. And like I said, we'll be back same time, 7 o'clock next week. And we'll see you then.